everyone. I am your host Ananya and I welcome you all to yet another phenomenal episode of our YouTube podcast series Ruminate. My guest here today is Mr. Tushar Aggarwal, who is the founder and CEO of Persistence. He's a very renowned investor and is also one among the very few who has been featured on the Forbes list of under 30. In today's episode, we're going to have a very interesting conversation with him. So if you are someone who is into finance, entrepreneurship, or is just intrigued by the evolution of blockchain and crypto, then make sure to watch it till the end and have fun. So with all that said, let's get started. Welcome, sir. Welcome to the episode. Firstly, sir, congratulations on being featured. And I think it's a great achievement and we're really honored to have you with us today.
Thank you, Ananya. Thank you to the VIT Ecell.
So you've had a very interesting career graph in the last 1 decade. You've been a mentor, you've been a managing consultant, you've been a venture capitalist, and also a contributing writer in the fields of blockchain and finance, and now as an entrepreneur. So tell us something about Persistence, how it came into being. Tell something about your company. What is the product ecosystem like?
Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah. So, before going into Persistence, a quick background about me. So, first 18 years of my life, I was, based in India. Went to high school. I'm from Dehradun. Went to high school in Dehradun, and then moved to Singapore for university. Finished high school in 2010. Graduated from Nanyang Technological University in 2013, and then worked with a large and small consulting firm based out of Singapore for 4.5 years, and was doing primarily consulting for financial institutions, so mostly banks, both on the private banking side as well as corporate and investment banking. And in the meantime, I had saved up some money. I'd been doing investments mostly into real estate with my parents. And then, in 2016, I had a liquidity event where I had some, cash to play around with, and I wanted to invest that into startups. High level thought process was that I wanted to make what is called asymmetric bets. What is an asymmetric bet? When you're young, you can make these bets where your downside is 1x, but your upside is 100x. So you can only lose what you have, which is not much when you're young. But if something works out, then the upside is huge. So that was kind of my high level thought process. And so with that thought process, I wanted to make angel investments into startups and not do something, very safe like real estate, which I'd been doing for a while. So I started working with a bunch of accelerators, incubators, met a whole bunch of entrepreneurs. This is, throughout being based in Singapore and Southeast Asia. And instead came across crypto, put all of my money into crypto. And then by 2017, my portfolio had done well enough for me to, basically quit my job. And I was intrigued enough to want to work in the industry full time. So early 2018, I started a podcast called Decrypt Asia because I didn't know how to get into the industry. And so again, my journey is not important. I think what's important is how these decisions were made, right? Which is something that I think folks in the audience can benefit from. So my thought process was clear. 1x, I wanted to be in a place where there is 1x downside, 100x upside. Second thing that I was very clear on was that today, the smartest and the most successful individuals and the most successful companies have something in common, which is they're leveraged up on capital, media, and technology. What does that mean? And that's kind of how I made the decisions in terms of, through the podcast on the media side, through Lunex Ventures, which is the fund as capital, and then Persistence, which is a technology startup. So, in early 2018, I started the podcast Decrypt Asia, which allowed me to speak to some of the leading folks in the industry and build a strong network and also a personal brand. So I interviewed all kinds of stakeholders, entrepreneurs, fund managers, service providers, and built a decent network. That led to writing opportunities on Tech in Asia, yourstory.com. And then there were a few VCs in Singapore that were looking to set up crypto funds. One of them was Golden Gate Ventures,
Okay.
which is a pretty well-known venture capital fund based out of Singapore, manage more than $200 million, have built out the Southeast Asian startup ecosystem. And so I joined, basically one of the partners reached out because he saw my podcast and the stuff that I'd written. And and I didn't know that they were setting up a fund, but during the first meeting, they told me that they were setting up this fund. So I asked for a job on the spot, which they happily gave to me. And so as the first employee in this fund, learned about the fund management business, how to incorporate a fund, what is the mission, vision, thesis of the fund, and how are we going to do investments? How is the fund going to be structured? Who are the different service providers we need to work with? So lawyers, tax advisors, fund administrators, cybersecurity consultants, Monetary Authority of Singapore as the local regulator. Set up this fund, raised capital from a publicly listed company in Japan, VC arm of a sovereign wealth fund, and then multiple family offices and high net worth individuals. And then deployed that capital into 7 startups and multiple investments on the crypto side. But then I always wanted to be, now I was investing, it was great meeting a whole lot of entrepreneurs, and I wanted to be on the other side of the fence in terms of being an operator of a business as opposed to just an investor. And that's how Persistence came about. And I was super bullish on India as well. So I'd been based out of Singapore now for almost a decade. I wanted Lunex to be investing heavily in India, but I think they didn't have the vision to do that. So I started investing in my personal capacity and would keep flying down on the weekends to India from Singapore to attend different hackathons and events. And that's how I met a whole lot of people who are now part of the Persistence team. And so, in the middle of 2019, decided to, build out Persistence. And by Q3 2019, after spending a decade in Singapore, decided to move to India and have been based out of here. Although my plan was to kind of shuttle between Singapore and India, but because of COVID, I've been in India. And at Persistence, what we're doing is, we're sort of building, we're trying to capture different newer kind of asset classes. So today, what are the asset classes that are available? Typically, if you have money, you'll maybe just keep it in the bank and earn interest on it through a fixed deposit. Or you may buy some stocks. Or some people who know about bonds may buy some bonds. Or some people who have connections in the real estate industry might buy some real estate. And some people might buy some gold. But finance is changing very rapidly. People want to own, like buying Hero stock or buying like Maruti stock is not exciting. What people want is to buy like Zomato stock, or if Swiggy gets listed, people want to be, because they're users of these products as well, right? Like if you're buying an Apple phone, you'd want to buy like Apple stock as well if you're financially savvy. And so I think from that perspective, what we're trying to do is create a whole bunch of these products and use cases which are operating at the absolute bleeding edge of where finance and technology is today. So we're focused on 3 different asset classes at Persistence. The first one is, and again, it's a little bit technical because this industry is, the industry that I'm in is very technical. So some of you may have heard about Bitcoin, which follows a consensus mechanism called proof of work. There's a consensus mechanism called proof of stake, which is basically a new kind of way that the different miners come to consensus on for the various crypto transactions that are happening. And so what we're doing is, the first product is called P-Stake, which is trying to solve some problems within the mining of these proof of stake assets. Again, very technical and very niche kind of product. The second product is a little bit more, is a product that has a little bit more mass appeal. So that's focused, it's an NFT marketplace. So basically buying and selling of, digital collectibles. And I don't know, some folks from the audience may have read about NFTs, and NFTs are basically anything like basically digital art, or, some folks may have bought and sold like Pokemon cards or Pokemon, like I used to do that as a kid. But just doing, everything is moving digital, and so are these little collectibles, and then increasingly so, right? So you can have collectibles inside of games and things like that. So that's our second sort of vertical. And then the third vertical is commodities. So things like wheat, copper, soya bean. And so we're trying to create synthetic commodities. Now, yeah, I mean, it's all a little bit technical, but again, high level, what we've done is we've created this, Persistence is the platform on which these applications have been built. And then you have P-Stake, which is the liquid staking application, Asset Mantle, which is the NFT marketplace, and then Comdex, which is focused on synthetic commodities. So that's sort of high level what my journey has been, what my thought process has been at different times, and then the products that we're creating at Persistence.
Okay. So, in your answer, you mentioned that you've had podcast interviews, or you've spoken to many large and small startups, and you've also been a finance and a blockchain advisor to many of them. What is the most perpetual scenario or of crisis or difficulty that these companies tend to face in their tenure in terms of financial?
Do you mean like the startups? What kind of financial problems they face?
Right.
Yeah. So, I mean, again, I think, I guess from Persistence's perspective, like the number one thing as a founder is just being able to make payroll, right? And be able to pay your employees. So, I mean, from our perspective, we last year, when the whole nation and the world went into lockdown in March, I was actually in San Francisco trying to raise capital for Persistence unsuccessfully. So we were in the situation where like suddenly the whole world is, going into lockdown and stock market was crashing. And we didn't have too much money in the bank. So, I mean, we just resorted to just being creative, right? So from our perspective, we just started mining a whole bunch of cryptocurrencies to be able to pay salaries, right? And again, if you look at the name of our company, it's called Persistence. And what we do is try and persist, which is finding innovative ways of just staying alive, right? Like even in the investment world, what, Warren Buffett says, it's like, yeah, even as a trader, investor, your goal is to never go broke, basically. Your success is determined by how long you can stay in the market. Right. And so, yeah, I mean, with respect to finances, I think when we didn't have money, we were extremely prudent. But the flip side is something that founders usually struggle with, I think, especially in India, which is where when you actually get money, you still don't, spend it because you're in such a huge habit of saving things. And that, and so the biggest thing is, like I truly think that what is my time worth, right? Quantifying it. And so if I say that due to my direct efforts, Persistence is generating $10 million in revenue, and I'm say hypothetically working 300 days in a year. So on a daily basis, the value of my time is $30,000. And if I'm working for, 8 hours, then the value of each hour of mine is about $4,000. So I can truly quantify that if I'm doing something that is not worth $4,000 in an hour, then I should just hire someone else to do it for me. But most founders don't go through this thought process, and because they've done everything themselves, they'll end up doing that, going forward as well. So I think if you want to scale and create an organization that truly lasts the test of times and create something that is extremely scalable, then you have to create the right team and, find people that you can delegate tasks to. So there's obviously the financial aspect of money, but there's the time aspect of money as well, which most people don't talk about. And so fortunately, we went from a place where we were basically like about to go broke to being heavily capitalized. And now it's like saying, okay, how can I save my time? Because I don't need to save money anymore. Yeah.
So you mentioned that during the lockdown, people were kind of trying to explore more into crypto and mining. And I think that was the time when proof of stake emerged a lot. It came into prominence too much. How did this benefit Persistence? How did it work out in favor for you?
Yeah. So again, if we talk about the industry as a whole, and we look at the trajectory, so Bitcoin came about in 2008, just on the precipice of the global financial crisis. But Bitcoin, you can't really do anything with Bitcoin other than just hold it, right? Like there is no use case of Bitcoin, just holding it, right, and trying to make money. But then 2015, Ethereum came about, with smart contracts, and Ethereum itself is proof of work as well, same as Bitcoin. But the problem with both Bitcoin and Ethereum mining is that it's extremely computationally heavy. And so you need a whole bunch of servers, which is bad for the environment. And so the carbon footprint is really bad. And so there were a whole bunch of researchers who, and proof of stake as an academic concept has been there for a while. So there were these researchers who were like, okay, we're going to try and make this into reality and put this into production. And so, in 2018, with the launch of Cosmos and Tezos, which were the first two, delegated proof of stake blockchains in production, they went live. Now, from a personal perspective, I was not early enough in the industry to be a Bitcoin miner or an Ethereum miner, but I was early enough in the industry to be a very early proof of stake miner. And so, I mean, the three products that I mentioned, I didn't mention this subsidiary that we have called Audit.one, which is the largest proof of stake miner in Southeast Asia and South Asia. We don't mention that because it's more of a services business rather than an actual product. So we got into proof of stake really early on. Helped launch multiple proof of stake blockchains. We run a big miner. P-Stake is a product that is focused on staking or mining of proof of stake assets. So I have, over the last 3 years, have worked very closely within the proof of stake space, and Persistence itself is a Tendermint-based chain. Again, for people who want to dig into, Tendermint itself is a general purpose blockchain, and so Persistence itself is a proof of stake chain in and of itself. So again, I think it gets a little too technical. I ideally want to sort of keep it high level, but of course, if anyone wants to dig in, happy to sync up with them offline.
So, you've been an entrepreneur since the last 2-3 years, and what do you think are the optimum ways to, make blockchain more accessible to public? Like, what are the ways can you advertise it on public platforms, or how do you think people will be more drawn towards exploiting its benefits?
Yeah, so that's a tricky one. I think, what do you do with money today, right? You earn money. You save money and earn interest. You spend money, and maybe you invest it, right? So earn, save, spend, invest. Those are the four things you do. And what's happening with crypto and DeFi, decentralized finance, is basically the same things, right? You can have crypto, you can earn interest with it, you can use it to spend on buy things, then you can use it to invest or speculate. And so a parallel financial ecosystem is being formed. The thing is, this whole earning, saving, spending, investing is only 5% of the actual finance world. 95% of finance is extremely structured products, extremely complex financial products. And unfortunately, that's what's happening in crypto today as well, where 5% of it is being used to do the things that we do with money, but 95% of it is being used by high net worth individuals, corporations, hedge fund managers to create these structured products. So which is why at some level NFTs have such a broad appeal, because finance is complex, but owning like a CryptoPunk, or owning like a CryptoKitty, or owning like a NFT in the form of like Pepe the Frog is something that has mass appeal. So and obviously you have like, movie stars, now minting their own NFTs. You have singers, you have, sports people who have really broad sort of consumer mass appeal doing these things. So I think that's what leads to, sort of mass appeal. As far as finance is concerned, I think it's too complex. So unless someone is really passionate about finance, I think it's very tough to, be involved in that space.
So you did mention in one of your podcasts with, I think, Liam Connor, that technology, business development, and community, these are the three most important pillars of blockchain. I believe the first two are still achievable to a certain extent with if you have the right team to drive technology with the proper experience and knowledge. But I think community, building a strong and a reliable community is a little tricky one. What is your strategy been to build the persistence community and engage them throughout?
Yep. So community is, I think a lot of it is just, a few things, right? One is, first of all, is just putting out content to attract people. Once you attract people, then genuinely caring about them. But I think if we talk about attracting people, some of the things we do is, first of all, have a broad appeal, right? Because a lot of the persistence products are being used by people globally. So we translate a lot of our stuff into like Mandarin and Korean, so that you're not only reaching out to English speaking folks, but have a much broader appeal. And then we have community managers in each of these countries who will interact with the communities there. So one is attracting people, and then it's like basically constant communication, constant engagement, and so, you keep doing AMAs, you keep, keeping them engaged through like, I don't know, like treasure hunts or whatever, small things, giveaways. And obviously, a lot of our community members are holders of our token as well. So, there's obviously people already feel like, they're part of like the persistence ecosystem. So it's a tricky one. It's, like there is no like, it's
Formula,
kind of part science.
build a community, right?
Yeah, so it's like part science, part art. Abhitej, who's from VIT, and at least from what he says, he's pretty well known. But obviously now it's been, I think, a little bit of time since he's graduated. But yeah, we have huge representation from VIT in our company. A lot of VIT folks, work in persistence. So, and I think some of the things that some of the society, and I'm sure like you guys are part of like multiple societies or clubs, and so I think a lot of the work that you do as well, right, is at some level prepping to like actually, build communities or be leaders in communities. And so, yeah, I think what allows you to do this and how you have, managed to get the, 20, 30, 40 people that are here, and over a period of time, how it increases is very similar to how we build our community. It's just that it's global in nature. And there is financial incentives or disincentives to be there. So yeah, that's the only difference.
So one challenge that I feel that many Indian companies tend to face is that they tend to be successful in their own market, in the Indian markets, but they find it difficult to make it overseas. How do you think Indian startups should work on their financial plan to, make it to the foreign market, to penetrate into the foreign market?
Yeah, I mean, again, there's no sort of, I mean, it's depends on the business. For us, it's not that difficult because of the nature of the industry. I mean, where you're global from day one, right? So our investors are global, our validators or miners are global, our community managers are, spread globally. Our, our community members are from around the world. Users of our product are from around the world. So I don't know what Indian founders can do, but from our perspective, the nature of our industry helps us to be global from day one. Yeah.
So it's been almost a very impressive decade of transformation for the blockchain technology. How do you see it revolutionizing money in the coming decade? What are your predictions on it?
I mean, look, I think everything in the world is getting hyper financialized, right? So, I don't know if you guys have, like a cred, this thing, but you have cred coins, right? Now, is that money, right? How do you define money? What is, and, especially with the amount of money that has been printed in the US, what is USD actually worth, right? And why is it worth what it's worth? And these are questions that, we don't ask. And so I think in the context of, the coming sort of decade, it's a very tricky time because we've been in a now 12-year bull market since the global financial crisis. Countries around the world have indiscriminately printed huge amounts of cash. Um, so many people have lost jobs and so many businesses have shut down, but the stock market just continues to go up. And so, at some level, you guys are maybe not graduating at the best time, right? Because again, I don't know, I'm not to, be the bearer of bad news, but I don't know how things play out. But what is clear is that I think the next decade will see some massive shifts, right? Either like if something happens to the US dollar, or something happens to, like a massive stock market crash or something like that, which creates opportunities as well, right? It's not all bad. It's not all doom and gloom. But I am a paranoid person. And, from my perspective, I mean, a lot of things don't make sense, right? In terms of, but what is clear is that, NFTs are being sold for like $100,000, $200,000, right? Which is like literally a JPEG file. People are buying and selling sneakers. People are buying and selling watches. And people. So the concept of money is, rapidly evolving, and everything is getting financialized. So I think you guys are all sort of, Gen Z, and so you're sort of, natively digital. All your interactions have been with finances being like through your phone, and so it's like it's an interesting this thing. And yeah, I mean, but high level, I'm a little bit scared with how the world looks like financially today, and I'm placing my hedges accordingly. But yeah, it's an interesting time, and we'll kind of see how things play out.
So being in the tech and this finance industry for so long now, what is your approach and strategy towards innovation?
I mean, I don't know. It's a very broad question, but I think, yeah, we just, what we do is we think of products, we think of what we would like to use, and we try to create them. And like thinking outside of like traditional financial products, right? So outside of stocks, bonds, and things like that, real estate, although those are very interesting to me as well. Especially like real estate. And then we see how we can gamify these things, right? Like how can we gamify and get people to be excited about real estate, or I mean, not real estate in general, but other products that we're focused on. But yeah, basically, how do you incentivize users? How are users thinking? And how do you get them, like what Uber did, fundamentally change the world. How? By incentivizing people to, order Ubers, and they fundamentally changed end user behavior, which is doing that through incentivization, and like creation of these products. Yeah.
So you started your entrepreneur journey after you gained a lot of experience about your industry. What do you think should be the correct approach? Like, can one start their entrepreneurial journey while in college, or after the completing graduation, or after being in the industry, spending a few years in the industry, gaining enough a broader perspective, and then venturing into entrepreneurship? What is your opinion?
Yeah, I mean, there's no like fixed answer. I mean, I always think there is, I did the whole corporate thing, and then started something. Would I do it the same way again? Probably not. You know, but I graduated in 2013, where it was probably a little bit more financially rewarding to be in a larger corporation as opposed to a startup. But I think now startups have a lot of capital. So, but yeah, I think when you're young, especially if you don't have too many liabilities, you can afford to get paid lesser. So I would always prioritize learning over making money, especially early on in career. So I would say like maybe, you know, get some experience as a startup. And but the thing is, you know, entrepreneurship is glorified, right? Everyone wants to be a founder. It's not easy to be a founder or a successful one. So yeah, I mean, I think you have to kind of do a little bit of introspection and get some self-awareness to be like, yeah, you know, do I just want to be a founder because it's cool and everyone's doing it? Or do I actually have what it takes to build a team, raise capital, build a brand, get a product built, take it to market, get users, innovate on the product, get more users, generate revenue, create culture, get more capitalized, you know? So I think the skill sets that are required, I think people try to underestimate what it means to be a founder. It's not easy. But is it rewarding? Absolutely. You know, we have 32 folks in the team now, you know, and you're basically calling the shots in terms of, you know, how to allocate budget. So I'm 29 years old, managing a, you know, multi-million-dollar budget, sitting on a multi-million-dollar treasury, you know, hiring smart folks to build products at the bleeding edge. Sure, it's glamorous, but it has its own like pains. Now the question is, are you willing to go through that pain? If you're not, then you can, you know, the upside from being like number 5, number 10, number 15 at a large company is still pretty great. And you get the experience and you get time to sort of introspect. So yeah, I mean, I think it's, you know, there's no one answer and everyone has their own strengths and weaknesses. So I think ultimately it's like your own personal decision in terms of what works for you.
So if you were given a chance to, you know, go back in time, how would you redefine your career? How would you start up early, or would you prefer this journey?
Again, I think like, you know, the cliche goes, or what Steve Jobs said, these dots connect backwards, right? Like I just didn't have the exposure or thought process, and I had to go through the whole corporate journey to reach here. Now, if I hadn't gone through that journey, maybe I would have never started and would have always kept working for a startup, right? So very difficult to say, but I definitely think, you know, if I could go back in time, would definitely work for a startup as opposed to work in a larger organization, because I think I would have learned a lot more things. Some of the things that I'm learning now in real time as a founder, I would have learned a lot earlier and made some of those mistakes earlier. But like, I still feel like I'm so young, right? Like I'm just like, you know, the persistence is fairly successful and things like that. I still feel like I'm just starting out, and it's like day zero, as you know, again, the cliche goes. So yeah, I mean, it's like, you know, if you zoom out, and if you want to do things for the next 30, 40 years, then, you know, it's incredible, right? Like we're all so young, right? 29 also, I feel like not even born yet properly into the world, you know, into like the business world. Yeah.
So, I believe that you know, what defines and shapes one's leadership is the ability to face challenges and deal with failures. I think you. So, how do you think, if you had to talk about one of your biggest failures in your journey, what would it be? Or your risks or challenges, the biggest challenge that you faced?
So I think last year was super stressful, where, you know, again, you know, once you have a startup, you're not responsible only for yourself, but you know, people other than you as well, right? And like we had few people who were like the only earning member in their family, right? And so if the startup doesn't work, you know, maybe I don't get affected personally financially, right? I'll just, you know, go work at a Google or Facebook and, you know, still do well. But you feel this responsibility for other people, And so I think the most stressful and like anxiety filled moments have been where you don't know, like it happened to me last year, where you're waking up in the middle of the night not knowing if you can make payroll. And that is challenging, to keep your sanity, and not even seeing any hope, right? Or you can't even see the light at the end of the tunnel. I think that's a tough this thing. And what do you do in those moments? You just persist, right? I guess there is there is no way out. You just have to like get past your fears and insecurities and just go bang on investors' doors and try to get some money, and do what it takes to survive. And yeah um yeah, that's it, I think.
So it's just an interesting question that if not an entrepreneur or a finance or a blockchain expert, then what would your career choice be? What would you have chosen as a career path?
If it wasn't finance or
Right. Or blockchain, or as an entrepreneur, what would the career choice be?
I think I would have probably done something to do with sports. Huge like fan of various sports. My childhood was all about playing different sports. And so I think when I was 24, I had this sort of phase where I was super confused about what to do next for about a year. And yeah, I think in that time period, I tried working with a politician, tried to work for a billionaire, tried to this is all just between like quitting my job and starting the podcast, and try to work with like a sports management company. So I mean, one thing was clear to me, that like I was not cut out to like for the corporate world. Like I didn't want to be another brick in the wall, or another like small cog in the wheel. Wanted to do big things. And yeah, so yeah, it was probably work with a politician, or or like work with like a billionaire, or like do something like that, or work in sports. I think that sports is what I would have ended up doing. So like work with I have friends who work with ICC or IPL, or like IPTL, which was the tennis league. Yeah, and I think sports in India is like picking up massively as well. So I think it's still super exciting. Yeah.
So in your entire tenure of 10 years of your career, what has been your motivation for perseverance and never giving up? Because you said that you have faced kind of difficulties in the middle. So how did you overcome that? What was your motivation?
Yeah, so initially it was money at some level. It's like you just want to prove like to people that like your parents have invested huge amounts of money to like send you to like good schools and colleges. And so initially I think you feel that responsibility to like give them a good ROI on their investment. But I think I got past that fairly quickly, because early in my career I kind of optimized for money and made enough by 24, 25 to like realize that money is not what motivated me. I think now it just comes down to like people. I think having newer folks join the team, being a mentor to them, shaping their thinking, some of the principles that I live my life by, helping others see the merit in that, and then creating I think something that is bigger than yourself, right? Where persistence, even if I'm not there tomorrow, ideally I want persistence as an organization to outlast me and outlive me. And that's the true mark of having created something, having created an organization. So I think that's what motivates me today. And again, I'm a very competitive person, which just comes by like like have always been competitive. And so just winning, I think that's what motivates me. I just want to win at whatever I do, whether it's like playing a board game with my friends, or playing a sport, or the business world or investing, whatever. I just want to win.
That's a great answer, sir. I think your company Persistence, the name itself really defines who you are and what your journey has been. Thank you so much, sir. I think it was lovely talking to you. You've shared so much of your entrepreneurial experiences, the challenges, the entire journey of being in the finance industry, of meeting up with so much startups and so many other things. I think all the knowledge that you've shared today has given us such a very explicit insight into how this technology is going to unfold in the coming years, and how I think Persistence is working towards to revolutionize this technology and make it more accessible to people so that they can exploit its benefits to the maximum. I think I'm sure all our viewers watching this will have something to learn and take back from this video. It's really been an honor talking to you, sir. Thank you.
Likewise, thank you so much, everyone, for taking the time, and for Khyati for setting this up, and Anya for posting it. I'm super busy, but if anyone wants to reach out, please do. If some of you are graduating next year, or want to get involved right away, right? But we truly don't care about what you studied or what your GPA was or what your age is. If you're hungry and ambitious and curious, then we want to work with you. So if you think that fits the bill, please reach out. We're always looking to hire. So yeah, reach out on whatever. LinkedIn can be great. Twitter DM, I use Twitter quite a bit. But yeah, always on the lookout for really good folks with integrity and hunger, who want to grow really quickly. Thank you so much for hosting this. Yeah.
So guys, that brings us to the end of our second episode of Ruminate with Tushar sir. If your curiosity was piqued and you had fun watching this, then make sure to like and share this. Let us know in the comments down below what you think about it, and subscribe to our channel. Also hit the bell icon so that you get notified every time we come up with a new episode. Till then, thank you and take care. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Bye.